The Jamison family, consisting of Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn Jamison, and their 6-year-old daughter Madison, seemed like an ordinary family living in Eufaula, Oklahoma. However, beneath the surface, they were grappling with a series of significant life changes. Bobby, a quiet and reserved man, had recently faced serious health issues which left him unable to work. Sherilyn, a passionate and creative individual, was struggling with depression, a condition that had deepened after the loss of her sister. Their daughter, Madison, was a bright and energetic child, known for her playful spirit and close bond with her parents. The family had moved to Eufaula seeking a fresh start, but their financial situation had become increasingly precarious. They were living on disability checks and savings, which added strain to their daily lives. Amid these challenges, Bobby and Sherilyn had turned to spiritual beliefs in search of solace and meaning. Their interest in spirituality was not just a casual pursuit, it became a central part of their lives, influencing their decisions and outlook. They believed in the presence of dark forces and were convinced that their home was haunted, which only deepened their connection to spiritual and supernatural beliefs. These factors set the stage for the events that would soon unfold, leading to their mysterious disappearance. The Jameson family's fascination with spiritualism went far beyond a simple curiosity. Bobby and Sherilyn were deeply immersed in their pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, which led them to explore a variety of unconventional and esoteric beliefs. Their interest in the supernatural was well known among those close to them. They believed their home was haunted by malevolent spirits, and they often spoke of seeing apparitions. Bobby even sought the help of a pastor to perform an exorcism on their house, convinced that evil forces were at work. This fear of dark entities seemed to consume them, shaping much of their daily life. Their spiritual journey also led them to explore fringe religious groups and practices. It's been reported that the couple dabbled in everything from New Age practices to more obscure and possibly cult like belief systems. They were said to have been researching various forms of spiritual warfare, convinced that they were under attack by demonic forces. Sherilyn, in particular, was known to leave cryptic messages and symbols around their property, which some interpreted as attempts to ward off evil spirits or to communicate with otherworldly entities. Friends and family noticed a marked change in the Jamesons' behavior as their obsession with the supernatural deepened. They became increasingly withdrawn, distancing themselves from those around them. Sherilyn's erratic behavior, in particular, raised concerns. She reportedly began carrying a witch's Bible and believed that spirits were guiding her. Bobby, too, became more paranoid, convinced that they were being stalked by dark forces. This combination of intense spiritual beliefs, mental health struggles, and growing isolation created an environment of fear and instability, contributing to the eerie circumstances surrounding their disappearance. On the morning of October 8, 2009, the Jamison family set out on what seemed like a routine trip with a clear purpose in mind. They were heading to the remote Red Oak area in southeastern Oklahoma to scout a piece of land they were interested in purchasing. Their dream was to live off the grid, away from the pressures and complexities of modern life. This desire to retreat into isolation was driven by their growing spiritual beliefs and the sense that they needed to escape from the dark forces they believed were surrounding them. Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison packed their white pickup truck with essentials for the trip, including their dog, Maisie. They planned to explore a 40-acre plot of land in the Sans Bois Mountains, a rugged and secluded area that seemed perfect for their vision of a self-sufficient, isolated life. Friends and family later recalled that the Jamisons had been excited about the prospect of starting anew, even though there were underlying concerns about their mental state. Throughout the day, the family was spotted by a few witnesses in the area. Security footage from a nearby property captured them moving in a trance like manner, almost robotic, as they loaded items into their truck. This footage later fueled speculation about their mental state at the time. Despite their strange behavior, there was no indication that anything was seriously wrong, and they proceeded with their journey as planned. The last known communication from the family came in the form of a call Bobby made to a landowner in the area confirming their interest in the property. However, after this, there were no further communications and the family seemingly vanished without a trace. When they failed to return home, concern grew. But it wasn't until 8 days later, on October 16th, that their abandoned truck was discovered by hunters, setting off a series of events that would turn their disappearance into one of Oklahoma's most perplexing mysteries. On October 16th, 2009, 8 days after the Jamison family was last seen, hunters stumbled upon their white pickup truck parked on a remote dirt road in the Sans Bois Mountains, a mere miles from where the family had intended to scout land. The truck's discovery immediately raised alarm as it was found in an area that was far from any main roads, deep in the wilderness, with no sign of the family nearby. When authorities arrived at the scene, they were met with a disturbing and puzzling sight. The truck appeared to be in working condition, but there were no keys inside. The doors were locked, and it seemed as though the vehicle had been abandoned in haste. Inside the truck, investigators found a number of personal items that added to the growing mystery. Sherilyn's purse was on the passenger seat, containing her wallet, IDs, and a large sum of cash, approximately $32,000, neatly stashed away. Bobby's wallet and IDs were also found, along with his cell phone, which contained the last call he had made to the landowner. Further adding to the mystery was the presence of their family dog, Maisie, who was still in the truck but in a severely malnourished state. The dog had been left without food or water, yet somehow survived the 8 days alone. The discovery of Maisie in such a condition was heartbreaking and only deepened concerns for the family's well being. There was no sign of a struggle inside or around the truck, and the presence of the large amount of cash led to many questions. Why would the family leave behind such a significant sum of money? What had caused them to abandon their vehicle in such a remote location? The lack of footprints or any clear evidence in the vicinity of the truck made the situation even more perplexing, leaving investigators with more questions than answers as they tried to piece together the events leading up to the Jamison family's disappearance. The discovery of the Jamison family's abandoned truck in such a remote location immediately triggered a wave of speculation and concern. Law enforcement and the public alike were quick to propose various theories, each attempting to explain what could have led to the family's sudden and mysterious disappearance. One of the initial theories that gained traction was the possibility of foul play. Given the isolated location of the truck and the large sum of money found inside, some investigators considered the idea that the Jamisons might have been targeted by someone who knew they were carrying cash. This theory was further fueled by the fact that Bobby had reportedly been involved in some disputes and had expressed concerns about being in danger. However, the lack of physical evidence, such as signs of a struggle or any indications that someone else had been at the scene, made this theory difficult to substantiate. Another theory proposed that the Jamison family might have planned their own disappearance. Some believed that the family, overwhelmed by financial difficulties and consumed by their increasingly erratic spiritual beliefs, had decided to vanish and start a new life elsewhere. The large amount of cash found in the truck seemed to support this idea, suggesting that they might have been preparing for a drastic life change. However, the presence of their malnourished dog, along with the fact that they left behind essential items like their IDs and wallets, cast doubt on this theory. A third theory considered the possibility of a tragic accident. The rough terrain and the unpredictable weather in the area where the truck was found made it plausible that the family could have wandered off and gotten lost, succumbing to the elements. This theory was particularly concerning as the area around the truck was densely wooded and difficult to navigate. If the family had ventured too far from their vehicle, they could have easily become disoriented, especially with young Madison in tow. In response to the discovery of the truck, police and search teams launched an extensive search operation in the surrounding area. However, the efforts were hampered by a number of challenges. The rugged and heavily forested terrain made it difficult for search teams to cover ground efficiently, and the weather conditions were far from ideal. Heavy rains and fog rolled through the mountains during the search period, further complicating the already challenging conditions. Despite deploying search dogs, helicopters, and numerous volunteers, the search yielded little in the way of clues. The dense vegetation and difficult landscape created a labyrinth where any trace of the Jamisons could be easily overlooked. As days turned into weeks, the search was eventually scaled back with no definitive answers in sight. The lack of evidence and the failure to locate the family only deepened the mystery, leaving investigators and the public to grapple with a growing sense of unease about what had truly happened to the Jamison family. As the investigation into the Jamison family's disappearance progressed, attention began to focus on the unusual and intense spiritual beliefs that Bobby and Sherilyn had adopted in the years leading up to their vanishing. These beliefs, which were deeply intertwined with their daily lives, provided fertile ground for theories suggesting that their involvement in religious or spiritual practices may have played a critical role in their fate. One of the prevailing theories centered on the idea that the Jamisons had become entangled in spiritual warfare, a battle between good and evil forces that they believed was taking place around them. Bobby and Sherilyn were reportedly convinced that they were under constant attack by dark entities, and their obsession with these ideas grew to the point where it influenced their behavior and decisions. Sherilyn was known to have kept a witch's Bible and had drawn protective symbols around their home, which she believed would ward off evil spirits. Some speculated that the family might have taken drastic measures to escape what they perceived as a relentless spiritual assault, possibly leading them to flee into the wilderness or engage in dangerous rituals. Further fueling these theories were reports of the family's potential connections to fringe religious groups. It was suggested that the Jamisons had been researching or even communicating with individuals involved in obscure and possibly cult like organizations. These groups often emphasize spiritual warfare and the need to protect oneself from demonic forces, aligning with the Jamisons' growing fears. However, concrete evidence linking the family to any specific cult or group was never found, leaving this theory largely speculative. Adding to the mystery were the unusual writings and signs discovered both at the Jamison home and in their truck. Investigators found cryptic messages and drawings that seemed to reference spiritual concepts and battles between good and evil. In one particularly eerie note, Sherilyn wrote about the presence of angels and demons, suggesting that she believed they were directly influencing her family's life. These writings, combined with the protective symbols scattered around their property, pointed to a family deeply entrenched in a belief system where the supernatural was an ever present threat. The combination of these spiritual and religious elements led some to theorize that the Jamisons might have been driven to a drastic and possibly fatal decision as a result of their beliefs. Whether they were seeking to protect themselves from perceived threats, attempting to reach a higher spiritual plane, or escaping from what they believed to be an inescapable evil, the spiritual dimension of their lives remained a key piece of the puzzle. However, without definitive evidence, the true extent of how these beliefs influenced their disappearance remains one of the case's most tantalizing and unresolved aspects. The mental health of Bobby and Sherilyn Jamison played a significant role in the events leading up to their disappearance, casting a shadow over their final days and potentially influencing their fate. Both Bobby and Sherilyn were known to have been grappling with serious mental health issues, which may have contributed to the increasingly erratic and unsettling behaviors reported by those close to them. Bobby Jamison had been struggling with paranoia for some time, a condition that seemed to intensify as the family's obsession with spiritual matters grew. He became increasingly convinced that dark forces were targeting him and his family, leading him to take actions that reflected a deep sense of fear and mistrust. Friends and family reported that Bobby had become withdrawn and secretive, often talking about seeing spirits and believing that people were out to get him. This paranoia was not limited to supernatural concerns. Bobby also feared for his family's safety in the physical world, which may explain why he carried such a large sum of cash with him, a precaution against the unknown dangers he felt were closing in on them. Sherilyn, on the other hand, was battling severe depression, a condition exacerbated by the loss of her sister and the stresses of daily life. Her depression was reportedly so severe that she was prescribed medication, though it is unclear if she was consistently taking it. Sherilyn's mental state manifested in various ways, including erratic behavior and mood swings. She was known to have fits of anger and despair, and her writings revealed a troubled mind consumed by dark thoughts. These writings, found both in her home and in the truck, hinted at a deep sense of hopelessness and fear, as well as a preoccupation with death and the afterlife. The combination of Bobby's paranoia and Sherilyn's depression created a volatile environment within the family, one that could have easily led to irrational decisions. Their mental health struggles likely fed into their spiritual beliefs, blurring the lines between reality and the supernatural in their minds. This mental state could have driven them to act on their fears and delusions, possibly leading them to flee into the wilderness or engage in other actions that contributed to their disappearance. Their mental health issues also raised the possibility that the Jamisons' final days were marked by confusion and desperation. The fear and paranoia that gripped Bobby, coupled with Sherilyn's deepening depression, could have led them to believe that they had no choice but to escape from an invisible threat. Whether this was a spiritual threat, as they believed, or a manifestation of their deteriorating mental health remains uncertain. What is clear, however, is that their mental state was a crucial factor in the tragic events that unfolded, influencing their behavior and decisions in ways that likely contributed to their mysterious disappearance. The discovery of $32,000 in cash inside the Jamison family's abandoned truck raised significant questions and fueled a variety of theories about the circumstances surrounding their disappearance. The presence of such a large sum of money neatly stashed in Sherilyn's purse suggested that the family may have been involved in something far more complex than a simple scouting trip for land. One of the most prominent theories proposed that the cash was connected to drug activity. Some speculated that Bobby Jamison, who had been unemployed due to health issues, might have turned to illegal activities such as drug dealing to support his family. The remote and rural area where their truck was found is known for its connection to drug trafficking, which gave weight to this theory. The idea that the Jamisons were possibly meeting someone for a drug deal gone wrong became a topic of intense discussion, particularly since no drugs or paraphernalia were found at the scene and Bobby had no known history of involvement in such activities. However, the theory persisted because it offered a plausible explanation for why they would be carrying so much cash. Another theory suggested that the Jamisons were planning to disappear intentionally. The cash could have been intended as a means to start a new life, free from the scrutiny and reach of the government or any entities they feared. Their growing paranoia, particularly Bobby's belief that they were being watched or targeted, might have driven them to withdraw all their savings in cash to avoid leaving a paper trail. This theory ties into their desire to live off the grid, buying land in a remote location where they could isolate themselves completely from society. However, the theory is complicated by the fact that they left behind crucial items like their IDs and Bobby's phone, which would have been essential if they were truly planning to vanish. A third theory revolves around the idea that the Jamisons were carrying the cash out of sheer fear. Given Bobby's increasing paranoia and Sherilyn's erratic behavior, it's possible that they believed they were in immediate danger, either from physical threats or supernatural forces they thought were pursuing them. In their minds, having a large sum of cash on hand might have been a form of protection, allowing them to flee quickly if necessary. The fear of banks tracking their transactions or the belief that they could be robbed or betrayed by someone they knew could have motivated them to keep their money close at hand, even as they ventured into the wilderness. Despite these theories, the exact reason for the Jamisons carrying such a large amount of cash remains unresolved. The presence of the money continues to be one of the most perplexing aspects of the case, adding to the intrigue and speculation surrounding the family's final days. Whether the cash was tied to illicit activities, a plan to disappear, or simply a response to their growing fears, it underscores the sense of urgency and desperation that marked their actions before they vanished. As investigators delved deeper into the disappearance of the Jamison family, the theory of foul play emerged as a prominent possibility. The mysterious circumstances surrounding the discovery of their abandoned truck, coupled with the large sum of cash found inside, naturally led to speculation that the family may have fallen victim to a criminal act. One of the first avenues explored was the possibility that the Jamisons had crossed paths with dangerous individuals, either intentionally or by accident. The rural and isolated area where their truck was found has been associated with criminal activity, including drug trafficking and illegal operations. This raised the possibility that the family might have encountered someone involved in such activities, leading to a violent confrontation. However, despite this theory, there was no concrete evidence linking the family to any known criminals or illegal enterprises. Investigators also considered whether the Jamisons might have had enemies who wished them harm. Bobby Jamison had reportedly been involved in a dispute with his father, which led to a tense relationship. Bobby's father, Bob Dean Jamison, had been accused of threatening Bobby's life over a family disagreement related to money and property. Although this strained relationship raised suspicions, Bob Dean Jamison had an alibi for the time of the disappearance, and no direct evidence linked him to any foul play involving his son's family. In addition to family tensions, Sherilyn was known to have had conflicts with neighbors and others in the community. Her outspoken nature and involvement in spiritualism sometimes put her at odds with others, leading some to wonder if these disputes could have escalated to something more sinister. However, much like the theory involving Bobby's father, there was no tangible evidence to support the idea that any of these conflicts resulted in violence. Despite the consideration of various suspects and scenarios, the investigation was hampered by a significant lack of physical evidence. When the truck was found, there were no signs of a struggle, no blood, and no indication that the family had been forcibly removed from the vehicle. The surrounding area was searched extensively, but no footprints, clothing, or other personal items belonging to the Jamisons were discovered. The absence of any clear signs of foul play made it difficult for investigators to build a case around this theory, leaving it largely speculative. The possibility of foul play, while compelling, ultimately remains unproven. Theories involving criminal elements, personal vendettas, or random violence continue to circulate, but without definitive evidence, they remain just that, theories. The lack of physical evidence pointing to an abduction or struggle has left this aspect of the case particularly frustrating for investigators and those following the story. The uncertainty surrounding what, if anything, happened to the Jamisons at the hands of others continues to be one of the many mysteries that make this case so confounding. In the aftermath of the Jamison family's disappearance, friends and family members were left in a state of shock and confusion. As days turned into weeks with no sign of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison, their loved ones struggled to comprehend what had happened. The involvement of family and friends became crucial in both the search efforts and the investigation, as those closest to the Jamisons provided insights into the family's recent behavior and relationships. Initially, the family's disappearance was met with a mixture of disbelief and concern. Bobby's mother, Starlet Jamison, was particularly vocal in the media, expressing her fears that something terrible had happened to her son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter. She described Bobby and Sherilyn as loving parents who would never willingly leave Madison behind, which deepened the sense of urgency in the search efforts. Starlet's emotional pleas for information highlighted the family's desperation and belief that foul play might be involved. However, as the investigation progressed, some of the statements and actions of those close to the Jamisons began to raise questions. Bobby's father, Bob Dean Jamison, became a focal point of suspicion due to the contentious relationship he had with his son. It was revealed that Bobby had filed a protective order against his father, accusing him of making threats and engaging in violent behavior. Although Bob Dean had an alibi for the time of the disappearance and was never charged with any wrongdoing, the strained relationship between father and son added a layer of complexity to the case, fueling speculation that family dynamics may have played a role. Sherilyn's mother, Connie Colcotton, also expressed concerns that the family's spiritual beliefs and involvement in fringe practices might have contributed to their disappearance. She suggested that the family had become increasingly isolated and paranoid, particularly in the months leading up to their vanishing. Connie's comments about her daughter's mental state and the influence of their spiritual beliefs added to the growing narrative that the Jamisons might have been driven to drastic measures by their fears and delusions. Friends of the Jamisons also provided valuable, yet sometimes contradictory, information. Some described Bobby and Sherilyn as a close-knit couple who doted on their daughter, while others mentioned the tension and odd behavior they had observed in the family's final days. Reports of Bobby's paranoia and Sherilyn's erratic mood swings painted a picture of a family under significant stress, but there was little consensus on what might have led to their disappearance. Despite the involvement of family and friends in the search and investigation, the conflicting accounts and lack of concrete evidence only deepened the mystery. The emotional turmoil and differing perspectives offered by those close to the Jamisons underscored the complexity of the case, leaving investigators to sift through a web of relationships, fears, and suspicions in their quest for answers. Ultimately, while the reactions and involvement of the Jamisons' loved ones provided important context, they also contributed to the layers of uncertainty that continue to surround the case. On November 15th, 2013, more than 4 years after the Jamison family mysteriously disappeared, a grim discovery was made in a remote area of the Sands Boys Mountains in Latimer County, Oklahoma. Hunters stumbled upon skeletal remains approximately 3 miles from where the Jamison family's abandoned truck had been found back in 2009. The discovery would later be confirmed as the remains of Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison, bringing a tragic but incomplete closure to the case. The remains were found scattered and partially exposed, a sign that they had been subjected to the elements and likely disturbed by animals over the years. The advanced state of decomposition made identification challenging, but through forensic analysis, including dental records, the remains were conclusively identified as those of the missing Jamison family. The discovery, while answering the question of what had happened to the family, left many other questions unresolved. The condition of the remains complicated efforts to determine the cause of death. Due to the extensive decomposition, there were no visible signs of trauma on the bones that could definitively indicate how the Jamisons had died. The absence of any obvious injuries, such as gunshot wounds or blunt force trauma, led to speculation that the family might have succumbed to exposure, dehydration, or some other natural cause. However, the possibility of foul play could not be entirely ruled out, given the mysterious circumstances surrounding their disappearance. Adding to the uncertainty was the location of the remains. While they were found relatively close to where the truck had been abandoned, the rugged and isolated terrain raised questions about how the family ended up there. Theories ranged from the family becoming disoriented and lost in the wilderness to the idea that they had been deliberately led or forced into the area. The lack of physical evidence at the scene, such as personal belongings, footprints, or signs of a struggle, only deepened the mystery. The discovery of the Jamison family's bodies marked a significant development in the case, but it provided few answers. The lack of conclusive evidence regarding the cause of death left investigators and the public grappling with the same unanswered questions that had plagued the case since the beginning. The skeletal remains, now laid to rest, closed one chapter of the Jameson family's story, but the circumstances of their deaths remain as enigmatic as ever, leaving this case one of Oklahoma's most perplexing and haunting mysteries. The autopsy and forensic analysis of the Jamison family's remains, conducted shortly after their discovery in November 2013, were crucial in attempting to unravel the mystery of their deaths. However, the results of these examinations would ultimately provide more questions than answers, adding another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, the medical examiner faced significant challenges in determining the cause of death. The skeletal remains were found to be so severely decomposed that any soft tissues which could have offered vital clues had long since disintegrated. As a result, the autopsy could not identify any definitive signs of trauma, such as bullet wounds, blunt force injuries, or evidence of poisoning that might have indicated how the family had died. The lack of visible injuries on the bones suggested that the deaths were not due to immediate, violent causes, but this conclusion was far from certain. One of the few conclusive findings from the autopsy was that there were no fractures or skeletal damage typically associated with violent death. However, this did not eliminate the possibility of foul play, as it is possible for a person to be killed without leaving marks on the bones. The analysis also ruled out certain natural causes of death, such as carbon monoxide poisoning, but beyond these exclusions, the findings were largely inconclusive. Further complicating the investigation were some mysterious elements that emerged from the forensic analysis. For example, a small hole was found in Bobby Jamison's skull, but forensic experts were unable to determine whether this was the result of a gunshot wound or a natural hole that can occur in human skulls over time, particularly after death. The ambiguity surrounding this finding left room for speculation, but no definitive answers. Additionally, toxicology reports were not possible due to the lack of soft tissue, so any potential evidence of drug use or poisoning could not be examined. This absence of data left a significant gap in understanding the family's final moments and whether any external substances might have played a role in their deaths. The autopsy report ultimately concluded that the cause and manner of the Jamison family's deaths were unknown, a designation that frustrated investigators and the public alike. The inability to determine how or why the family died, combined with a few ambiguous findings, kept the door open to multiple theories and continued speculation. The inconclusive nature of the forensic analysis has ensured that the case remains a haunting enigma, with the true circumstances of the Jamison family's deaths still shrouded in mystery. Despite the discovery of the Jamison family's remains and the extensive investigation that followed, the case remains unsolved, with numerous theories continuing to circulate. These theories range from the plausible to the outlandish, each attempting to fill in the gaps left by the lack of concrete evidence. The mystery surrounding the Jamisons' deaths has led to ongoing speculation, with several prominent theories emerging as potential explanations.
One theory that has garnered significant attention is the possibility of a murder suicide. This theory suggests that the intense psychological strain the family was under, particularly Bobby's paranoia and Sherilyn's depression, may have led to a tragic and violent outcome. The discovery of a small hole in Bobby's skull, though inconclusive, has been cited by some as possible evidence of a gunshot wound, potentially indicating that Bobby might have taken his own life after killing his wife and daughter.
However, the lack of a weapon at the scene and the absence of definitive signs of trauma on the other remains make this theory difficult to prove, leaving it as a disturbing but unconfirmed possibility. Another theory posits that the Jamison family met with an accidental death. Given the rugged and remote terrain where their truck and bodies were found, it is possible that the family became lost or disoriented in the wilderness and succumbed to the elements. This theory is supported by the fact that the area where they were found is notoriously difficult to navigate, especially for those unfamiliar with the landscape. However, questions remain as to why the family left their truck in the first place and why they did not take more precautions if they were simply on a scouting trip. The presence of the large sum of cash also complicates this theory, suggesting that something more than a simple accident may have occurred. A third theory suggests that the Jamisons might have been planning to disappear voluntarily, but their plan went tragically wrong. The cash found in their truck has fueled speculation that the family was preparing to start a new life, possibly due to their growing fears and desire to escape perceived threats. Some believe that they may have intended to go into hiding but encountered unforeseen circumstances that led to their deaths. However, the lack of evidence supporting a planned disappearance, such as preparations or communications indicating such intent, makes this theory speculative at best. In addition to these theories, there are also more sinister possibilities, including the involvement of a third party. Theories of foul play, whether by an individual known to the family or by strangers they encountered in the remote area, continue to persist. However, the absence of clear evidence of a struggle or confrontation leaves this theory as just another piece of the puzzle that cannot be definitively placed. The ongoing speculation and numerous theories surrounding the Jamison family's disappearance and deaths underscore the complexity of the case. The lack of conclusive evidence has kept the case open to interpretation, with each theory presenting its own set of questions and uncertainties. As a result, the Jamison family's story remains one of the most enigmatic and haunting mysteries in recent memory, with no clear answers in sight. The enduring mystery continues to captivate those who seek to understand what truly happened to Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison on that fateful day in October 2009. The disappearance and subsequent discovery of the Jamison family's remains sent shockwaves through the small, tight-knit community of Eufaula, Oklahoma, and the surrounding areas. The case quickly became a focal point of local concern, drawing widespread attention and fear. Residents who had once felt secure in their rural surroundings were suddenly faced with the unsettling reality that such a mysterious and tragic event could happen so close to home. The ambiguity of the case and the lack of answers left the community grappling with a profound sense of unease. Many people speculated about what had happened to the Jamisons, with theories ranging from the bizarre to the frightening. The local media coverage and the growing number of rumors only amplified the anxiety as the community sought to make sense of the inexplicable. In response to the Jamison case, local law enforcement agencies faced significant pressure to improve their handling of missing persons cases. The challenges of searching the rugged terrain where the family was found highlighted the need for better resources and training. As a result, there were efforts to enhance search and rescue operations, including the adoption of more advanced technology and the establishment of protocols for dealing with similar cases in the future. The case also served as a reminder of the importance of timely reporting and thorough investigation when dealing with missing persons, prompting a heightened public awareness about the critical first hours and days after a disappearance. The case of the Jamison family remains one of the most perplexing and haunting mysteries in recent history. Despite years of investigation, countless theories, and the discovery of their remains, the many questions surrounding their disappearance and deaths remain unanswered. What led Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison into the remote wilderness? Was their fate the result of a tragic accident, a deliberate act, or something even more sinister? The lack of definitive evidence and the multitude of conflicting theories have left this case shrouded in uncertainty. The enduring mystery of the Jamison family continues to captivate public interest, drawing in those who are fascinated by the unknown and compelled by the search for truth. The case has become a symbol of the unsettling reality that not all stories have clear endings and that some questions may never be fully answered. The impact of this case has been felt not only in the local community but also across a broader audience as people continue to speculate and seek closure. As we conclude this exploration of the Jamison family's tragic story, it's important to remember that mysteries like this endure because they touch something deep within us, a need to understand, to explain the unexplainable, and to find closure in the face of the unknown. If you or anyone you know has information that could shed light on what happened to Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jamison, please come forward. Even the smallest detail could help bring answers to a case that has left so many questions in its wake. The mystery of the Jamison family's disappearance is one that continues to haunt, and your voice could be the key to unlocking the truth.